My name is Ginger Valentine. Welcome to episode 5 of the Burlesque Playbook. In this video, I'm going to give you the roadmap you need to create your very first burlesque act. There are so many phases to learning burlesque, right? We get really excited, really inspired. We take a class. We're like, this is amazing. I'm having the time of my life. I got this. I knew I was meant for this. Everything is wonderful. Then we have to start from a blank slate and create our very first burlesque act. And for many of us, that can be the first time we're like, wait, what? Maybe we know some moves, maybe we have some techniques on how to tease and tantalize the audience, but like, how do you really take all of that knowledge and those moves and organize it into an actor show that you are excited to perform in front of your friends and peers and a ravenous audience? So in this video, I'm going to give you the basic building blocks of how to create a burlesque act. Like I said, emphasis on the basic building blocks. Also, be advised, like, these are not rules to live by. I am a huge proponent of learning the rules so that you can break them, but it's important to learn the rules and really understand, the foundation of burlesque and striptease before you go and subvert stuff. I'm going to teach you a basic structure of a burlesque act, and moving forward, this will be so helpful because you won't really be starting from scratch. You're already going to have some points of interest that will help you fill in the blanks and take you from a blank slate to having actually something to work with. First, there's the introduction, okay? You can kind of think about a burlesque show like your own act, like writing a paper, right? So you just don't just start immediately. You're gonna introduce yourself. You're gonna let them figure out what's going on, right? Because there's so many different ways to do burlesque. So first you have an introduction. We haven't taken anything off. We're just letting them find out who we are, our concept, we're establishing our character, that type of thing. In a traditional burlesque act, you might call this the parade. It's where you're walking around stage, you're doing some moves, but you're fully dressed, right? Maybe you have a prop, I don't know, something like that. That's the introduction. And then next we start to really get to the exciting part, which is strip tease. This is when we start to reveal what's underneath our costume, but this is when we really start to do burlesque, if that makes sense. Okay, this is the body of our paragraph. This is the whole, where we talk about everything we're going to talk about. Next is the climax. A lot of times that might just be your pasty reveal at the end, and that is totally valid and fine. It doesn't have to be like some huge sight gag, gimmick, bait and switch, prop reveal from the ceiling. Like, don't overcomplicate things and just trust that your own unique style, approach, and personality is what's going to make it special. But, especially when you're just getting started, climax, pasties come out, or your final reveal, something like that. And then you have your exit. Okay, so if I were you, I would take those sections and I would take my music. Wait, you have your music, right? I'm operating under the assumption that you already have your song. I'm going to do a whole other video on music choice and musicality, but for now, let's just pretend you have your song, okay? And you're going to listen to that song as many times as you can if you're not already familiar on an intimate level. And by intimate, I mean like you've listened to it on headphones with your eyes closed and you pay attention to all the little nuance, all the key changes, all the solos and all that. Then you start to think about, okay, where does my intro start and end? Where does the strip tease? Where do those reveals happen? When's the climax? The music will help guide you, right? So then you start to just kind of block it out. Now, this is where I begin to tell you exactly like how I do it, and you can do what I do, or maybe you can use it to inspire you to create your own technique and method. So after I've done that, then I take my costume pieces, or whatever I have that I'm working with. Maybe if I don't have my actual costume, I have some kind of stand-in, some kind of something to practice with, right? Because that's very important. Definitely wear my shoes. I play my song and I use my camera. This is so important because it's not about like watching yourself and being too critical or too analytical. It's also about documentation, because if you're working on a new act and you're anything like me, there might be a moment where you're like, wait, I did something yesterday and I liked it, but what was it? What did I do? Well, you can go back and watch a video and you have all these ideas. Okay, so maybe if it didn't work on that day, you might feel differently. Or you might use something from that practice in another act down the line. Just trust me, record everything, okay? This is when what I like to do is I like to do some type of freestyle improv with my costume pieces and my shoes and the music and whatever costume pieces I have in place. And that's when I start to see what happens. Okay, this is just like a general approach. That to me is how I go from absolutely nothing to what I call an SFD, which stands for shitty first draft. If you've ever watched, if you've been watching my videos for a while on TikTok or Instagram, wherever, or maybe you've been like a private client of mine, you've definitely heard me talk about a shitty first draft. This is what I want you to know and take away from this whole lesson is that when you are creating your very first act and you're starting from scratch and you're going from start to finish, you're not creating something perfect, you're creating a shitty first draft. It is so much easier to refine and polish something than it is to create something perfect step by step. Do not edit and create at the same time. If you've taken any kind of creativity class, like writing or I don't know, your teacher probably told you sometime, it's a process. Writing is a process. Choreography is a process. Burlesque act creation is a process. Yes, we can look, I was the queen of doing it in the 0 hour and getting high marks. So I'm not saying that there's not merit to like operating under pressure, but at the same time, even though I do well in those circumstances, my experience, I do my best when something has been cooked for a little while. Okay. Now I'm not afraid to, refine some things once something's already on stage, but I still have a standard before I put anything out in front of an audience, right? You have to do a little bit of refining. Get a shitty first draft and then refine it and understand that it's going to take time. And the refining process, that's a whole other video as well. But there's all different kinds of ways you can look at your rehearsals, you can think about your acts, and you can elevate them all on your own. But if you want extra help, I do take on private clients and I have plenty of content here online. On my website, I'll have stuff linked below that I think will be helpful for you when it comes to creating a first act. Okay, so again, these are just like the building blocks and the encouragement I think you need to just like get going. If you guys have more specific questions regarding your very first act and how to get started, please let me know. In episode 6 of Burlesque Playbook next week, we're going to talk about, do you need a costume for burlesque? Or how do you get a costume for burlesque? Or what should my first burlesque costume be? We're going to address those issues. So if you have questions regarding that, you can put them in the comments below and I will get to those as well. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.